Welcome guys back to the channel, and you're watching UB's Laboratories. So today we're gonna have a look at multimeters. It's going to be a beginner video, so if you already know what is a multimeter and how you can do it, you can just skip the video. So this is a multimeter that most common electro specialists use. Now this one isn't the best one out there available in the market, but this one is good for the beginners. Now as you can see, there are many numbers, some ports to connect the LEDs and everything. There's also a display over here. That is all about the stupid physical outlook of this one. So let's get started and have a brief idea about how to use this one. So with the multimeter set, you can get around 150 to 200 rupees. This one is the probe that you can just need to connect over here. That is for the common ground that comes here. This is the ground pin, and you have to connect the negative pin over here, and the positive if you just want to measure the voltage, that is the potential difference. You have to connect this one in this board, that is voltage, resistance and milliamps of current. So turning on the display, if you go for the left side, the DCV, that is the initial indicates, that is DC voltage, so you can measure up to 1000 volts DC and maybe somewhat above that in this multimeter when you go for this range. Now for measuring voltages up to 12 volts, which is the most common, you have to use it between 20 volts, and for measuring the live mains voltage that comes into your house, that is 220 volts AC, you have to go this side, that is 750 volts AC, which exceeds 200 volts obviously. Now this is all about the potential difference, voltages and all about that. Now what if you have to measure some resistance about the resistors? Now what happens is, when you have many resistors in the box, commonly you just don't remember the values, color codes and everything like that. Now God knows who is going to be proficiency in this kind of work, like taking the color codes and understanding the value. So unless you don't have a marker code on there, you need a multimeter to test the resistor. So that is pretty simple when you have a multimeter. Now for example, you can measure a resistor and see what value does this offer. No, seriously, I don't know anything about code, the color code, and there's a way of measuring the resistance just by knowing the color code. And I've set it to 200k, that means 200 kilo ohms. I'm just gonna put this probe on here, and it indicates me like, sorry, the measurement is a bit of inaccurate. So this one tells me 1 kilo ohm, that means this resistor is rated for 1 kilo ohms of resistance. Now this is the simplest way of measuring resistor, isn't it? Okay, so let's go to the next function and see if what is this one, the current section. So for using the current mode, you have to remove this probe and put it here. That means if you just want to measure current under 10 amperes, which this multimeter is rated maximum for, you have to measure it under 10 amperes DC. So you have to put this here, and you have to put these LEDs across the unit or the circuit where you just have to measure current. Remember, this is not like voltage measurement that you can put this across any battery or any wires. Well, remember this, that this one is shorted and is going to measure the current. So you might short a battery and hurt yourself if you don't know anything about that. So the next feature is the continuity measurement. Also this one can measure the diode and some sort of resistance like in ohms. So when you switch it to the continuity, for example, if I touch the LEDs, wait, I just made a mistake. I have to switch this before turning this from current to any of these else functions. So when I put these LEDs together, if you can listen, that indicates that there's a continuity, and it indicates me the resistance of 1 ohm through this wire, the probe. Okay, so that is how this one works, and it will surely tell you the continuity if the electricity that is sent through these probes is flowing through back or not. Now this is all about this one. We'll be having some certain tests in which we'll be using the properties of this. Here we're gonna test the voltage range by a battery. This is a lithium-ion battery, and many of you know that this is like 3.7 volts DC. So we'll be setting up the multimeter to the voltage and the ground, and under 20 volts DC, and just directly hook it up to the wires, and you can see 3.7 volts DC. So that is here how it indicates the voltage, and if I just flip these together, and it indicates me with a negative sign. This is minus 3.70 volts. So this was like the voltage measurement. Now we'll be seeing the current measurement. Current measurement, what we're gonna do is like we'll be switching the multimeter to 10 amps. We'll be putting the probe in the 10 amps DC port, and we'll be taking the probes to series connection between the point we need to measure the current. So the positive goes through the multimeter to the motor, and we'll be having no load on the motor, so the no load current is like 70 milliamps for here. So you just have to be careful you do not just put these probes across any battery, like if you're measuring voltage, because this is going to short itself, and if you just touch these, so what is going to happen is there will be a huge flow of current through the multimeter, which is initially going to result in damage to the battery. So be careful using the multimeter. So for the continuity test, what we're going to do is like we just have to take all the stuff back, and we just have to switch the multimeter to VMA. That is what we call it as the voltage, resistance and milliamps. And now we'll be taking the switch. For example, if I just don't know if the switch is working properly or not, so what I'm going to do is like I'm switching the multimeter to the continuity mode, and I'll be taking the probes. So if I turn the switch on, it should ensure that there is continuity between its terminals. So let's check for if it's working properly. Yes, as you can see, there is a very low resistance, and it shows me continuity between its terminals when it's on, and when it's off, obviously it's not going to show any continuity or something like that. So when it's off, it's not going to show any continuity, and that is how you test a switch or something like that which has to have continuity in order to be functioning. Now this is the use of the continuity. So that is it all for today, guys. Be careful while working with this kind of apparatuses, and you can even just damage yourself as well as the machinery if you just work improperly. So be careful and stay safe. Thank you.